This is Thursday on BBC One, so it has to be Top of the Pops.
Good evening, welcome to Top of the Pops. A load of firsts tonight. It's the first chart of November. It's my first Top of the Pops, and it's their first Top of the Pops. Wham!
When I was about 16, I decided that with Andrew we were going to start a group, much to my parents' horror, you know. But I'd wanted to do it since I was about 6 years old, and told them that from the age of about 10. Had arguments with my father especially for about, 6 or 8 years non-stop. I think my mum always wanted me to be happy and do what I wanted. My father was very suspicious of the business even after I'd been in it for a while. And I think it's only now that he realises that I can really make a go of it,
Why music, though, I wonder? I mean, people go into music for all sorts of, girls or for money or to be famous or whatever. I mean, what was it with you, really? Did you always want to write songs, maybe?
I didn't actually realise that I was a songwriter until I was about 16. I knew that I wanted to be famous when I was about 7. And I knew that it was in the music business that I wanted to be famous. I didn't know quite how I was going to do it. It all kind of came about gradually, But I mean, I don't think it was ever anything else. It certainly wasn't the money that attracted me. It was just the idea of fame, I think. It also happens that I love what I do, and I love music, and I obviously have an ability which can carry my ambitions.
At 16, though, I wonder, I mean, when you first started all this business, did you actually go through the hard slog of, playing in local pubs?
No, we never did all that. We never did the pubs and clubs and everything. I think Andrew and I have got a very strong perspective on how things are generally, and I think we always realised that if the songs were good enough, you didn't need to slog around the pubs and clubs. We weren't a band as such. I mean, we broke up our first band, The Executive, then carried on writing for about a year, and then went to record companies with them. But I think we always knew, if you write good songs, someone wants to make money out of you.
I suppose the problem is, though, you see, that people are always suspicious of bands that do come up so quickly or do have so much confidence in themselves from the very beginning. They feel, in a way, you should have paid your dues.
I know.
How many times have you heard that since you started?
Oh, exactly. I think paying your dues is like the old rock and roll term, But it's not so necessary these days. There are other ways of promoting yourself, and there are other ways. I think just initiative, even in the days when it was like standard for every single band to play pubs and clubs, people with initiative probably got there a lot quicker, simply through using their heads a little bit, and not believing what they read in the press,
But, I mean, talk about being what you read in the press, because, I mean, what's said about you in the press is that you made it totally on the strength of, two pretty faces instead of one, I mean, the image sells it,
Oh, well, I really don't care what the press think, to be honest with you, because I know that there are an awful lot of pretty faces out there, and there's an awful lot of faces a lot prettier than us as well. But they don't do half as well, simply because you have to have something to sell in the first place. I mean, a pretty face, you see pretty faces on every page in every magazine that you pick up, but they don't usually write or sing or produce or whatever. I mean, we put an awful lot of work into what we do, and I think we get paid back for what we do simply because we take so much time, because we're very professional. But of course people don't actually give us credit for that, because we're both very young. I mean, there aren't an awful lot of... I think actually we're the youngest group to be in our position in the country, because we're both 21, and they just... I think everyone just assumes that someone took us and placed us in the middle of all this glamour and said, right, we can sell these, which is absolutely rubbish. I mean, we have no one directing us at all in any image or musical direction. I mean, I don't really care. The press say certain things, other people in the business say certain things, but the people who are buying the records don't listen to any of that, And they buy the records because they like the records, not because the faces on the cover are pretty or whatever.
Why did you decide to do Careless Whispers at this stage? Why also decide to do a solo single when I'm quite sure that a lot of people think that Wham is George Michael anyway,
Well, I mean, I've got a very, very simple answer to that, which is, I mean, you if you can listen to Careless Whisper and then listen to any one of the Wham singles and then tell me that Wham and George Michael are the same thing, then you have faulty hearing. I mean, I just think that it was the right time to release it, simply because our profile is very high now. And it's an old song that we wanted to get out of the way, because we've got better stuff to release.
But you say we, I mean, you think of it as a joint effort with Andrew again.
Yeah, because Andrew and I wrote it. You see, we wrote it together a long time ago. But it would have been very, very stupid as a Wham record. You know, suddenly Wham make a ballad just doesn't work. You know, Careless Whispers by Wham. You know, it's just the number of people that said it's not going to work. You know, you can't do this. You'll be confusing people. We would be confusing people if the records were similar, but it's a totally different type of record.
But you talk about the honesty and the honesty of your approach, right? I mean, quite clearly, you and Andrew do write songs like Careless Whisper. I mean, Wham could do a song like Careless Whisper.
Oh yes, but
why not?
Why do that and take away from the strength of identity that you've been building up for 2 years? I mean, it's all very well to say we are just songwriters and Wham is just a vehicle for our songs, which is basically the case because we use loads of session musicians, which is what we always wanted to be. As songwriters, we're also very aware of our market.
So there's no suggestion then that you'll go one way and that Andrew will go another way, or that you'll work with him.
There's
to
suggestion everywhere. I mean, there've been suggestions for the last year, but none of them have been justified, and none of them are even vaguely. I mean, it doesn't cause any friction because we just kind of sit back and have a laugh at everybody because everyone is dying for us to split up. Basically, I'm sure that half the business would, you know, break open the champagne if we split up tomorrow. I mean, the public certainly wouldn't like to see us go, but the press and the business would. But I'm afraid they're not going to be satisfied.
You said right at the beginning of this interview that from about age 6 onwards you knew you wanted to be famous.
Yeah.
Is it as good as you thought it was going to be?
I don't think it's as glamorous in any way, but it's better. It's definitely better. I mean, it's better because I didn't have any idea that we could come this far this quickly.
Anyway, here is a question we don't ask on Pop Quiz. What does happen to pop groups as they begin to grow old? Some fade away, others become not so golden oldies, while others, like Wham, go out with a bang. And what a bang too. The supergroup of George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley have sold over 30 million records and broken probably as many young girls' hearts.
Right, shall we start recording just for a second? First question then, must be a logical one. Here you are, the end of an era, to celebrate the closure of the band. You don't look very sad about it, Andrew.
There's no need to be, is there, really?
He's had to put up with me for 4 years.
But is it the end of an era? I mean, is it the big goodbye?
No, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we don't plan any comebacks or anything like that. It is final. When we made the decision last year, it was a decision based on something that we discussed even before we ever had any success with
the fact that we hated each other.
You know,
it was based on that, really.
That can only last a maximum of 6 months. You know, we could obviously stretch the public's credibility to believe that it would go at least 4 years. No, we just didn't want the band to become soured or. For we've outgrown our youth. We're
come along.
Wham was about being young.
We can't say we've outgrown. All these people of 30 will be looking at us at like 22, 23.
Right,
well, we have.
Yeah,
I mean, not from another 22-year-old's point of view. That may not be true.
I don't think it's I think quite honestly, it's like you grow out of that, not even necessarily optimism, but the kind of naivety. And
you're certainly doing this business.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're not exactly jaded, but we're certainly jaded compared to the way we were 4 years ago. And basically, I think it would be. I mean, the original records, all the Wham records, have been about, vitality and kind of optimism, and it's not that we're not that anymore. It's just that we know that if this went on for say another year or two, we're at the stage now we could possibly go on to another stage. We could have got bigger and really taken the group further than anybody's gone in quite a while. But we already knew what was happening.
About 3.5 years ago, November '82 was my first Top of the Pops. It was also the first Top of the Pops for two guys who went on to immense success. Tonight is their last Top of the Pops as Wham, with The Edge of Heaven at number 1, George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley.
The British pop duo Wham have become the first Western group to appear in China. This afternoon, 12,000 Chinese fans packed the Workers' Stadium in Peking, though they had a problem saying the name. The nearest they get is Wei Meng, which means brave and audacious.
Tickets for this Wan Peking concert were not easy to come by. Police were on hand in case of trouble as hundreds of youngsters queued all night, suitably elated when they got the tickets and the free Wham cassettes that went with them.
Well, everybody knows he pulled it off. Everybody knows also that it was... there were a few problems on the tour, and that you're not very happy about looking back on it. You both said that you would never go back to China.
Oh, nothing to do with the tour. There weren't problems in terms of going there and playing. I mean, the press might have liked to say that, but basically what happened was that you just cannot win with the press. It's as simple as that. The press, we arranged for them to be there in China, arranged everything for them, totally played it their way, and then because we were playing in Hong Kong a week before...
The management even had to get their visas. The press couldn't manage to get their own visas.
Yeah. It's like that. I mean, that was really that was the time. That was the last time we actually really courted publicity because we wanted the event to be a worldwide event.
Right.
Because it won't ever happen again. But the thing was, we did cooperate with them hugely, and then because they found out that we were playing some warm-up gigs in Hong Kong, they all followed us to Hong Kong, and we were saying, no, we want to speak to you in China. Anyone can play in Hong Kong, and everyone does play in Hong Kong. So please just leave us alone for a week, and we'll talk to you in China. They wouldn't have that, right? Because they were all afraid someone was going to get some kind of exclusive in Hong Kong. And so they just all slated the China thing when it happened. And it was that was the final example of it doesn't matter how you play with your game with the press, you are never going to win, and they will always treat you exactly how they feel like treating you that week. And at that point we said, right, China is the last thing, we will never talk to the press again.
So why did it upset you so much? Because let's face it, you're only English, you're only going to be there for a month or so, you're coming out. I mean, there's no real hassle, no skin off your nose, is it?
No real hassle. I like that.
Well, explain to me.
No, it's
well, we're over there with the world's press baying at our heels. We're acting as diplomats. We're forced into situations that we don't really want to be in. We only want to play the bloody shows. We're performers over there, and suddenly we've got everything else forced upon us.
We had loads of political meetings in terms of meeting people from the government and stuff like that. Which, I mean, basically it was all a big press exercise, I think, for the Chinese. I mean, obviously it was a press exercise for us, God. But for the Chinese, it was kind of... Because China obviously is going through a very strong period of change at the moment, and it was a kind of like opening their arms and saying, here we are, we accept the Western pop group. We won't let anybody dance at their concerts, and if they, dance and try and make a noise, we're going to drag them away.
Well, I guess it would be nice if I could touch your body.
My early life was definitely very working class, and both of my parents came from real, genuine poverty. But I think I absolutely realised in my mid-teens that I was the son of an immigrant. I understood what the difference is between my ambitions and my work ethic was in comparison with the people around me. And I understood that was what made me not very English, It's this kind of, this shameless kind of graft, move up, graft, move up, graft, move up, which was what my father gave me. And I think genetically I have his drive, so I have to be lucky. I think I'm very lucky in that. But my mother, you see, was the complete opposite. So the messages were very mixed at home. My mother didn't want us to move out of our working class neighbourhood. And my father was determined as an immigrant that we were going to be a middle-class family.
So what is your name?
Yorgos Kyriakou Panayotou is my real name.
And do you ever...
Snappy little pop name.
Do you ever pick up the phone and say, this is...
No.
No. And can you speak Greek?
No, I can speak the occasional swear word. Because, of course, my mother used to use the Greek swear words when we were somewhere public, that she didn't want people to know what she was saying. She would say the words in Greek and quietly, and we knew exactly what they meant.
So your nickname, Zog, is not a swear word?
No, my nickname comes from the fact that Andrew Ridgely came home with me when I was about 13 or 12. He hadn't met my parents yet, and heard them calling me Yorgo, which is it's the... In Greek, if you're talking to someone, you remove the S. If you're talking about them, you put the S back. So they call me Yorgo, right? So Andrew went back to school and said, everybody, look, they call him Yoghurt at home. So I was Yoghurt for years, and then I got abbreviated to Yog, so my closest friends all call me Yog.
But I was wondering how you feel about immigration now. I mean, because there is so much, particularly in the last 5 or 6 years, and it's been so much a political issue. And as a second-generation immigrant, how do you feel about the resistance to immigration, the way that some papers treat the whole idea of immigrants? I mean...
Well, it's funny, because most people wouldn't realise, but the Cypriots being one of the countries in the Commonwealth that were kind of inviting people to come to the mother country to rebuild the place after the Second World War, there were places that would say no blacks, no Irish, no Greeks, you know, no dogs, kind of thing. And so my father was part of that, and my mother's father did not attend their wedding because he was Greek, and that in those times he still saw that as absolutely the same thing as marrying someone of a completely different colour, you know. So I was very much I'm only a little way away from that experience.
Steve Wright in the afternoon, and yes, George Michael has... I thought you were never... Thank you. I thought you were never going to arrive. How are you, George?
I'm fine.
It's nice to see you.
You too.
Listening to the album, there are a few little leaders into the way that you're thinking now. I mean, without getting too heavy. And
Don't get heavy on me, Steve.
All right, I won't, George, I promise. But would you say this is like... I mean, I don't want to make a pretentious remark, but is this your Sergeant Pepper, as it were?
Oh, I hope not. I mean, the thing is, to be honest with you, I mean, I'm very pleased with it, but at the same time, I can still see... I mean, I think that I've got plenty more ideas, and I hope that each album will be better. So, I mean, Sergeant Pepper, really, you can talk about Sergeant Pepper as a certain zenith, isn't it? Beatles, yeah. I mean, I've got a long way to go. I don't feel I'm anywhere near what am my best yet.
There's definitely, though, as they say in America, an attitudinal change here.
Attitudinal?
Right, yeah. Right. It's true, though, isn't it? I mean, you're moving more towards songwriting, as you've said in the press over the past couple of days, and less into the showbiz, pizzazz, George imagery that you've, given us before, right?
Yeah.
Now, why? Why? Because being a star's nice, isn't it? I mean...
Well, it's nice.
The adulation, people coming up on the street. I mean, we were out with you this morning and George! I mean, that's lovely.
Yeah, it's great, yeah. For a couple of weeks, it's a good laugh. No, I mean, I just think, I think I've changed, I suppose. People change, don't they? I mean, I'm like 27 years old, and I used to really enjoy it. There were, you could have stuck me in front of a camera or in front of people screaming 24 hours a day when I was younger. I would have loved it, but I think I've changed a bit.
Right. All right, well, we're going to come back and talk some more, and we're going to play some tracks from the album. In fact, I'll tell you what, I'll let you choose the first track. The album is called Listen Without Prejudice, George Michael's fresh album. We have it on CD. Do you want to introduce this track?
Which track is it? Tell me and I'll introduce
it. You choose.
OK, I'll go for the Stevie Wonder cover, They Won't Go When I Go.
All right, here it comes. We'll be back in just a moment with George Michael, our special guest today.
No more lying friends, wanting tragedy.
Elton was here and he was singing your praises, and so was Paul McCartney. I mean, to have praise from people like Paul and Elton and Stevie Wonder, I mean, doesn't it blow your mind, George?
Well, it is kind of hard for me to perceive, really. I think the people that have respect for my songwriting in terms of, dare I say it, older writers, I think it's because I'm very much a traditional writer. I think so much of the music that's going on at the moment is relevant and very contemporary, but won't really stand up out of context,
Right.
And I think I've always written not really particularly for the period that I was in. It was always just a matter of writing songs with real structures and melody. Those type of traditional songwriting values are really what I'm into. So I think people recognise that,
How do you rate people like Prince?
I think Prince is absolutely, he's... there's no one can come near him as a musician, as a maker of records. I think he's made some of the best records of the last 10 years. In terms of songs, I don't know how many of his songs I would actually take again, out of context and out of those records.
Out of the era.
But some of them are absolutely brilliant. I mean, When Doves Cry is a brilliant song. Kiss is a brilliant song. Some of them are just really simple, fantastic pop songs.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to play another track from the album. Let's play this.
When your heart's in someone else's hands, have something to say.
I was determined to be noticed for what I did. I didn't realise that I was going to be selling something else as well. I didn't realise I was going to be selling my physical persona. The truth is, what do most people... When you see somebody famous on the street or in a restaurant and you're with people, what's the first thing people talk about? Because there's nothing else, because you didn't speak to them or whatever, you talk about how they looked. But you can be absolutely sure if you looked shit that day, that's the first thing they'll say.
But why do you care about that?
I don't. On a rational level, I don't at all. You know, that's the point. I've actually managed to realise that it is not rational, that I shouldn't spend any time worrying about it, but it doesn't stop the fact that I still feel that I've got to do my best before I leave the house.
Because when you were on the MTV Awards last week, you arrive in the biggest sequined limousine I've ever seen. You come out, and this is the
Mirror
guy...
tiled. It wasn't sequined.
Sorry, whatever. And you come out, and you've got the shades on, you've got the, I don't know, this kind of waistcoat stroke, dress coat stroke outfit on. And it's like...
there he is. There's the
I know
arsehole.
exactly why.
There's the arsehole.
But why do you do that?
Because
though?
people love it. At the same time, it is great entertainment. You know?
But surely ultimately you've got to draw them in, and they've got to know you. They have to know you.
But don't you think they do by now?
Well, not if you... No, because the facade that you're talking about isn't you in this interview.
No, that's true.
And you in this interview...
But that's one of the reasons for doing this interview. You see, what I'm trying to tell people is, look, people enjoy me looking that self-absorbed and that kind of full of confidence, and that is performance. You know, that is... To me, it's a career I never expected to get into. Performance is never something I really expected to get into. But the fact is, it's one of those things that I do quite well. I can work it out and I can do it well, and people enjoy it, so I should have the freedom to do it.
Right.
And not worry about the people that don't care about the music anyway, just think, what an arsehole in his big silver car or whatever. But I think that the people that really like the music and that understand the music will get that as well.
George Michael's counsel had already told him the bad news. For the first time in this case, he was wearing dark glasses. It was always going to be a huge risk. But he felt the relationship with Sony had become so bad he had no choice but to seek legal escape from a contract that could run for another 15 years. Mr. Justice Jonathan Parker's judgment is 270 pages long, but he read a brief summary in court. The singer sat quietly in the front row, occasionally shaking his head. In essence, the judge found no evidence of unfair conduct by Sony, and that the contract is reasonable and fair in English law, and that European law simply does not apply.
The initial view is that we have very strong grounds for appeal, and we hope to have the appeal heard as quickly as possible.
He says he won't sing for Sony again, so the only alternative to an appeal would be if another record company did a deal with Sony promising compensation. Wesley Kerr, BBC News at the High Court.
My special guest tonight is the artist formerly known as Yorgos Kyriakos Panayiotou. He's a one-time disc jockey at the Bel Air restaurant in Bushey, who became a superstar of modern popular music. He's a boy who worked as a dishwasher in his father's restaurant, who Sir Elton John described as the Paul McCartney of his generation. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome please, George Michael. May we begin?
What a lovely bunch. They're very large, these Greek families, aren't they?
I think time for music, don't you?
Yes, I would say,
break,
yes.
a little musical interlude. Tell me the song you're going to sing. It's called A Different Corner.
Yeah, it's called A Different Corner. I haven't actually sung this for about 11 years, 10 or 11 years, even though people see Careless Whisper as my first solo record. The truth is that Careless Whisper was written when Andrew and I were at school, and it was written for, you know, whatever we turned into. Yeah. But Different Corner was the first thing that I wrote as a solo artist, so I thought it'd be a nice thing to do, just to bring back a few old memories.
Man and your singers await you.
Thank you.
I'd say love would keep us from pain had I been there. Had I been there, I would promise you all of my life, but to lose you would cut like a knife, so I don't dare. No, I don't dare, 'cause I've never come close in all of these years. You are the only one to stop my tears, and I'm so scared. I'm so scared. So scared. Take me back in time, maybe I can forget. Turn a different corner and we never would have met. Would you care? I don't understand it. For you, it's a breeze. Little by little, you brought me to my knees. Don't you care? Now I've never come close in all of these years. You are the only one to stop my tears. I'm so scared of this love. And if all that there is this fear of being used, I should go back to being lonely and confused. If I could, I would, I swear. My baby don't care for shows. Come on.
I never had any experience of playing to audiences that weren't that worked up. So I've had to kind of wean myself off of that and realise that it's just as important to sing well as it is to keep people excited, you know. And as my audience has got older, obviously I feel I'm able to do that. So by the time when it comes to something like the Freddie Mercury benefit, I know it's an adult audience and I know that it's going out on TV. I know it's very important that I sing in tune, basically. So I'm a lot more still now, yeah.
What is a great stage performance? Is it a combination of flamboyance and calm moments? I mean, the Freddie Mercury was a very brief appearance, and therefore we're not taking that. But I'm talking about a concert performance.
Yeah.
Is it studied? Do you think it through before you do it?
No, I think I tend to kind of... every tour is different because every tour is that much later than the one before, and your audience has changed and your music has changed.
Yeah.
So I think, like for instance, with the Cover to Cover tour, it probably took me about 4 or 5 shows before I understood what I had to do.
I've always thought the most frightening thing for any artist must be when you do something quiet and you have that silence and you have to fill it. Is it? You know that moment when the applause dies away and you say, I'm going to sing something soft now.
Yeah.
And there's an absolute silence and you're on your own. That must be terrifying.
It's not actually. They're the moments I enjoy the best, actually. Because these days I do actually get silence when it's called for, whereas there was a point... In America, to some degree, that's still the case, really. There was a time when it was very difficult to keep people quiet when I wanted to sing something that I felt, was with a fair bit of sensitivity, because there's still people shouting my name, and that's really very much died down. The shows at Wembley that I did for the Cover to Cover tour, which we actually took Papa Killer from, and what was the other one? I'm Calling You from. Those shows, I think, were the most wonderful shows I've ever played.
Why?
In terms of, for me, anyway.
But why?
Because for the first time, I was in front of an audience that I really thought, one, was not just behind me, but wanted to listen. And there were points where you could hear a pin drop, and that, for me, was a brand new experience, and I loved it. I think there's something very powerful about performing in front of large numbers of people. It's a moment that I honestly, no bullshit, I'm not trying to be spiritual because I think it sounds good here. It's a moment where I genuinely feel like I am a channel for something, because I can't compare that feeling with anything else in my life. The rest of my life, to me, is not that different from other people's lives. But when I stand up there in front of however many people, especially when it's a huge crowd, I know that there's something different about my life.